Welcome to the Delay the Binge Podcast. I'm your host, Pam Dwyer, and this podcast is about understanding the deeper why beneath our habits, not just around food or substances, but the ways we numb, distract, and override ourselves in everyday life. Delay the Binge is about slowing things down, just enough to make a different choice. It's about the pause, the moment where awareness turns into intention and small shifts start to change everything. If you've ever felt stuck in patterns you understand but still repeat, you're in the right place. Let's get started. Today, I'm joined by Dr. Robin Buckley, a clinical psychologist, executive coach, and an author who helps people approach relationships with the same intention and strategy they bring to their work. Robin, I'd love to start by letting you tell us a bit about who you are and the work you're most passionate about right now.
Oh, Pam, that's a loaded question. So, as you noted, I have a background in psychology, which I just love, and I've always enjoyed helping people and really trying to help them find really what they want in their lives. So switching to coaching made a lot of sense because it's very proactive, it's very preventative in nature. And my work grew into couples work that is different than couples therapy because a lot of people are afraid of it or it's too intense. And the coaching model works really well for people who really just want to focus on where are we and where do we want to get to.
Mhm.
And I get that. And so the book really offers that perspective in a very concrete and applied way.
I love it so much. And my husband and I have been married for 30 years, but we still go to therapy every now and then. It really helps just to stay fresh that way.
Yeah, well, I usually tell people and clients, if you identify as a woman, you see your gynecologist every year. Most people go to their dentist twice a year. We bring our cars in for maintenance. We bring our pets to the vet once a year just to make sure things are still on track and catch anything before it really derails our health. And yet so few couples have that approach with their relationship. They either ignore the problems or they wait until the problems are at a crisis level. And then we're not talking about maintenance, we're talking about repair. And that's harder. So I applaud you, and that's awesome.
Well, I remember my Granny Koontz specifically when I told her I was getting married. She says, Pamela, that's going to be the hardest job you'll ever have. You got to work at it.
Yeah. And I respectfully would disagree with your grandmother that it doesn't have to be hard.
Okay.
You have to be diligent. It's diligence, dedication, attention, nurturement, and then strategy. And then it doesn't have to be hard because I work really hard with people to make sure that they tell their brains the things that they want their brains to pay attention to. And when we say, oh, sure, marriage is such hard work, our brain believes us. And then it's like, oh, this is hard work instead of, I'm going to be diligent about this. I'm going to focus on this every day. It's going to be my goal to support the relationship and grow with my partner. Your grandmother had the right idea. I just like to change the words so your brain is really ready for what it actually could be.
Oh, and I love that correction so much because it hasn't really been hard at all. I mean, we're still very close but we do work at it. So,
Right. Absolutely. Yeah. Like anything else in our life that we want to be successful, we work at it, whether it's our garden, whether it's our career, we put time and dedication to it so that it can be as successful as possible. And the idea that people get into relationships and they just wing it or they hope for the best. And I'm like, really? Really? Like, you're just going to hope that it works out? Like, we don't do that with the other things in our life that we really want to work. But our relationships have a whole different approach. And I would love to get people beyond that societal myth.
well, and I do love that you talk about approaching relationships with intention. Um, so even borrowing the frameworks from the business world, I really like that. So what shifts when people stop hoping things improve and start designing how they want to relate? How do they what changes when they start hoping things improve and start designing, how they want to relate?
Well, I think one of the first things that happens, and I love that question, I don't think everybody's ever asked me that, is that it actually makes them feel like there is something they can actually do. They have functional control, not tightly held, strangling control, but, oh, I can actually do something to make this work instead of, I don't know, we'll see if things work out. They actually can start to have a plan.
Mm-hmm.
Once they have a plan, or in creating the plan, it enhances the communication. It enhances the connection. So the plan becomes the goal, but in the process of creating the plan, it enhances the relationship almost as part of the process. So it shifts this idea that there's nothing we can do about it. People are just who they are and that's it, to know we're a team and we can do this together. Our relationship becomes a project, just like at work, that we want to have successful outcomes for. And
Mm-hmm.
the business framework is because, as you and I both know, Pam, relationships, there's a lot of emotion involved. And that's wonderful until there are emotions that detract from the relationship and undermine it.
Mm-hmm.
Use business terminology, it helps us to tap into that objective part of our brain and really, instead of, oh, we have all these problems, it's, no, we have some pain points. And it's different. Our brain registers it as different. It goes more to our frontal lobe, which is the logical part of our brain, rather than the amygdala, which is the fear-based reactive part of our brain.
I love that so much. We talk a lot about that on the show about the brain, and I'm just so I'm researching it a lot because the frontal cortex versus the lower brain chatter, is very important in Delay the Binge because of the pause, giving your frontal cortex time to get back online
Right.
instead of listening to the fight or flight or just ignoring or numbing out your emotions and not addressing it at all.
Yeah, that you're absolutely, Liz, one of I love teaching my clients about the neuroscience that helps their relationship. And I try and keep it quick so it doesn't bore them. But it is so true that when our lower part of our brain, especially our amygdala, is involved, we are fight, flight, freeze, or fawn. And those
Mhm.
are going to be our four reactions, none of which are beneficial to our relationship. When we can actually get our frontal lobe into the conversation, that's when everything truly changes. It's almost magical. But the magic is that what strategies you can use so that your frontal lobe does become part of the conversation. Because otherwise, your amygdala will run the conversation like a toddler on caffeine, and that is not going to help anything.
And short term.
Yeah. Oh my
Yeah, I've just recently realized that, it's a quick fix sort of thing, but
God.
it's not long term.
No, absolutely true.
Now, so a lot of times I know personally, when I realize that there's a pattern that's not healthy or doesn't serve me well, sometimes I can get pretty self-critical, like, so how do we do that without turning the awareness into self-criticism?
Yeah. I think that my experience has been when couples allow it to be a conversation about the we, the us, the partnership. So I talk a lot about different strategies in the book of what couples can do borrowing from business. And one of them, there's four types of check-ins I encourage for couples. And one of them is a monthly check-in, just like, once a month you check in with your team at work to see how all the projects are going and, where everybody fits in. And in those meetings, I also encourage couples to do a SWOT analysis. So SWOT from business is strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. So they look at every area of their relationship, from finances to sex to internal or external stakeholders, which are the dependents in your life. And they apply a SWOT analysis, but the SWOT analysis is about them, is about, if it was me, it was about us. What
Mhm.
what did we do really well this month that enhanced our financial goals? Okay. And then what were some things that we could have done better? They were the weaknesses or the challenges. It is never you or me. It is us together, because again, that triggers your brain to realize we are the team, and it actually boosts the oxytocin, which is our connection hormone. When our brain hears we are us, oxytocin goes up. When it hears me or I, oxytocin goes down. It is as simple as that.
That's incredible, and I love that.
No.
So what you're saying is real change. Well, in order to accomplish real change, we talk a lot about it, the plus one theory, which is something I've named from my childhood. But the plus one theory is taking small, incremental steps towards a goal and just applying yourself a little bit more, just to look outside of yourself for a moment and look at the we or the us in small steps, though, because I don't know. Sometimes people, I think, try to accomplish this all in one day.
Yeah. I had a client and she was a potential client. She's like, "I read your book, so I want to work with you. My husband and I are doing all of it." And I'm like, "When did you read the book?" She's like, "Last week." And I'm like, "And now you're doing all of it." That's amazing and terrifying to me. Like, how about we just start with one thing at a time and we slowly build in the steps so that it becomes, one, it's not overwhelming, and two, it's sustainable. Because that's what we're really looking for, something that lasts for the longevity of the relationship rather than, as you mentioned right from the beginning, a quick fix. Quick fixes are not what couples are really looking for, but it is often what they go to.
Well, and I am curious too, how do you feel about the mindset of people thinking that they have to start over? Can't they just pick up off where they left off, where the issues started? I mean, is it better to do it in that way?
My perspective, Pam, is that when couples say, we want to get back to where we were, I'm like, well, that's where I'm not going to help you with that. You can't go backwards. And why would you want to go backwards? Why would you want to be a past version of yourself or of your relationship? Your relationship has evolved through the good and the bad. And so we're going to start by creating where the relationship is right now and using our past to help educate or direct the future, but not to go back to that last point. But on the flip side, I will also say I encourage couples not to always reinvent the wheel. So, oh, we're going to try this whole new approach. Like, okay, how about we look at what was really successful in the past? What were the things that we used to do that really helped the relationship? And then we can implement those again towards the evolution of the relationship. Because sometimes there are great strategies or things that we did when we were first together in a relationship that over time people forget to do, whether it's small things like leaving a note every once in a while, reminding your partner how much you appreciate them or going on date nights. It's okay to look backwards from that to pull strategies that were working to reapply them, but we're not going to go backwards. We're always going to be looking forwards.
Well, and just it brings a lot of clarity, right? Then they can address all the issues if they just step back and take a look.
Yeah.
Instead of going way back in the past.
Oh my God. I think that's the challenge with some therapeutic approaches, certainly not
Mhm.
all, is that couples become afraid because in therapy, there will be a deep dive into the past and it'll be this emotional turmoil instead of saying, hey, we can't change the past. I mean, maybe there were some really crappy things, but can't change those. What we can do is make a decision of what we want right now and what we want in the future and move forward from there. So I am certainly not saying things should not be, looked at if they were significantly detrimental to the relationship. And that's where I think therapy is really important in those issues that have not been resolved. And I think they fall into a couple categories: adultery, addiction, abuse, loss of someone really significant that affected the relationship. Those are therapeutic issues that are important to address. But that's why I love coaching, because a lot of my clients will start with therapy and then they come to coaching when they've resolved those traumatic issues and now they're ready to move forward because the healing has happened.
Right, the traumatic issues. I mean, in my book, I talk about my childhood for a little bit, and it was quite dysfunctional and very abusive. It was horrible. And so it did impact me personally, as a person for a long time until I started going to therapy, and they taught me how to cope with everything
Right.
going on. But what I didn't do is I tried to ignore it, to not think about it.
Yeah.
But what happened is I started binging on things like overworking, overpleasing food, which
Yeah.
is the whole reason I've created my program, Delay the Binge, because it's not just about food, right? We're doing whatever we have to do to ignore what we're really feeling. And I just, I don't know. I think sometimes in a relationship, the they're not sure or clear on their role, right, in a relationship. And so then you start blaming yourself or even having shame or fear and all those things that can get in the way, and then you just don't even address it at all.
Right. It is. I never judge when people say that they're trying to ignore things or psychological avoidance or any of that. That's human nature. That's the amygdala saying, "Oh my God, we don't want to deal with this. It's too hard. It's uncomfortable. It feels a little dangerous."
Danger,
These
danger.
Exactly. That is your brain, your one part of your brain trying to take care of you. So
Yeah.
it's how can we get to the point where that becomes part of our self-knowledge, self-awareness, but it doesn't define who we are, and it does not get to have a third role in the relationship. And that's why therapy is, oh my gosh. When couples call and I'll ask about their background, if those issues come up, I'm like, I have some great therapists I can refer you to, and absolutely come back and work with me, because I want there to be clear lines between the work that people are doing around trauma and then the work they're doing that is really that proactive, future forward approach.
Yes, proactive instead of reactive.
Yes.
That's what I've probably taken a total of 8 years of counseling. So every therapist I've ever had, they always try to get me to be more proactive, instead of reactive.
And it's hard. I mean, and this is
Yeah.
for whether we're talking about relationships or anything. It's
Mhm.
what, and I think it's important, again, very similar to business. What's our ultimate goal? And oh my gosh, Pam, I could talk about a conversation I had. We have 4 kids between us, and our 20-year-old, who's our youngest, is moved home for the year before she transfers to a different college. And she came to tell me about a situation last night. And I'm grateful that she, at 20, wants to tell me about things and talk to me and get my perspective. But the thing she was telling me about, which is she's going to this event that I think is sketchy. I think there's something doesn't sound right about this event. There's red flags going up. And she is a smart, very street smart girl, but she's 20. She doesn't have life experience. And my reaction was to be like, you shouldn't go. You can't go. Don't thinking. But my goal is that she always comes to me. And that was the superordinate goal for me. So I listened and I sat and I bit my tongue and I asked questions to help her think, not
Mhm.
influence her, not to tell her what I'd really rather, which is please just stay home, but to get her to just have some perspective. And I don't know what her decision will be, but the goal is that continues to talk to me. So that's what guided my actions. And that's what we're talking about. It would have been very easy for me to be reactive. It was everything in me wanted to be reactive. But I went with the proactive choice of good or bad, she'll come home and she'll tell me about the event. And that's more
Yes, raising I mean, being a parent to an adult is it's harder than I ever thought it would be.
agreed.
I mean, you can't tell them what to do anymore, you can just wait for them to ask for your advice, which will never happen.
Yeah, and it's allowing yourself to now move to the role of mentor versus
Mhm.
parent. And you've been a
Yes.
parent for, 18, 20 years. It's a hard shift, but it's
Yes.
really important. And then the one question that your statement triggered for me is I suggest to all parents, and actually this works in relationships too. The first question asks, do you just want to vent or do you want advice? Do you want me to listen or do you want advice? And that sets the whole tone of how to move forward. And
Mhm.
all of a sudden they say, yeah, I want advice. And then you're giving advice. And then they're like, no, I didn't want that. Okay. So again, do you want me to listen or do you want advice? Okay. Then we can go from there. But it's that SOP around the conversation that helps.
Yes,
Yeah.
I'm reading a book right now about listening as a skill because I think we teach our children how to pay attention, but we really don't teach them how to truly listen to someone else.
Hmm. How would you define the difference?
Paying attention means they're listening to what the rules are, what they should do and what they should not do. Listening is really tuning in to what the other person is saying, like, asking questions saying, "Oh, really? Well, tell me more." Tell me more has just been key with my grandsons. They're 11, they're twins, but they will not listen for anything, but when I really give them my full attention and ask them to tell me more, then they're like, "Oh, she wants me to talk," because they feel like they don't have a voice, young people.
Yeah. Very true. Very true. Love that.
So when, can I ask you, was there ever a moment, personally or professionally when your framework really clicked for you? I mean, when did it all come together for you?
Yeah, that's a great question.
Yeah.
The irony is that I do the work and I wrote a book around making relationships successful. And the ironic part is I've been divorced twice. And I love acknowledging that. And I actually appreciate that I'm coming from that perspective of learning from a lesson that didn't, or two lessons that did not go the way that I thought, and growing from that and building strength. And a lot of times when clients challenge it, I will remind them that, a lot of us have Apple products in our house, but Steve Jobs wasn't successful in every single project he did. We just see the successes. We get to benefit from the successes. And if you follow sports, our favorite coaches do not always have successes, but their failures, their challenges help them grow better as coaches. And to me, that's kind of where I am, that, yeah, I've had 2 failed marriages. I learned. I learned the hard way, and I'm hoping that some of my experience can help clients, and this framework can. So it really came together when I did a lot of work with, like, female executives and female leaders, and these women were amazing, Pam. They could organize teams and deal with conflict and negotiate and do all this, like, amazing stuff. And then they'd tell me about their relationships at home, and I'd be like, "Well, you're having this conflict with your spouse. Why don't you just do what you did in the boardroom?" They're like, "Oh, Robin, that's different. No, 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 that's different." I'm like, "But it's not different." So the more I crafted it and talked to them about just taking these strengths from one environment and applying it to the personal environment, it started to make so much sense for me in creating this framework around, okay, what terms can we use? What concepts can we pull? What strategies to create a different approach to relationships that isn't based on the rom-com model, where a lot of people have it in their heads, like, that's how relationships go, and I'm like, "No." So, it really was fun to all of a sudden see it solidified, and then my clients started saying, "Robin, we just wish it was all in one place." I'm like, "Oh, I'll write a book." So, that's where it
I'm
came.
so glad you did. It's helping a lot of people, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Um, I do. I love that philosophy a lot about strategy and, well, I don't know. My mantra is your past doesn't define you, it prepares you. So, taking that pain and using it for purpose, but also learning from my mistakes, from my failures, and then using that.
Yes.
Because my big deal was just feeling bad that it all even happened, hating that it happened. But I learned how to appreciate it because it brought me to where I'm at now.
Exactly. That's my idea when I, talk about the divorces that I've been through, like, but without them, I wouldn't be who I am. I would not have, I don't think I would have as strong of a marriage now that I'm in. And then it helped create the framework and helped just change that. So I agree. And Nelson Mandela's quote is on my wall. It's my favorite. It says, "I never lose. I either win or learn." And I love that. I live by that because it's like, yeah, yeah. And even that story I told you about my daughter, she will either win and have a very fun time tonight, or she'll learn. And that is how we grow. That's how we evolve.
I know I've always thought, "Oh, it's so hard to teach your child that fire is hot." The only way they're gonna remember or learn is if they burn their hand. I mean, why
And
does
that's
it have
hard.
to be so
And it's
like
hard
that?
for a lot of people. I think all humans, that unfortunately we do learn from our failures and our pain faster and sometimes with more longevity than our successes. And I wish it was reversed. I really do wish,
No,
like, our successes were equally as instructive, but I haven't witnessed that. I think they are, but when you feel some kind of discomfort, pain, or failure, that if you approach it with, okay, what am I getting out of this? Then that can be so powerful.
Yeah, it's just so healthy and it makes you stronger. So when people are when they're emotionally charged, in a negative way, like the example I can give you is my team and I with my company, we'll go into a business and we will assess their entire uh how they function, what they do. But every single time we cannot move forward with the marketing. You know why? Because there's so much emotional drama in the office that we can't even get through that wall. So we have to address that first. So I love that you combine business and emotions, that does matter. And it can get in the way if you don't address it, right?
Percent. What One of the biggest critiques I have around my framework and the book is that, when people first hear about it, it's like, Robin, that's too robotic, or it's too clinical, it's too cold, it takes all the emotion out of relationships. And my debate back is it actually doesn't take the emotion out of relationship. It provides a safe place for the emotion. It provides a structure that houses the emotion so the emotion can be good and have positive benefits on the relationship. And the structure ideally contains some of the negative emotions that can derail it. And I am certainly not saying people have to walk around in a land of unicorns and rainbows. Like,
Right.
sometimes negative emotion happens, but I always say you can have a negative emotion for as long as you want it. It's a choice. Emotions are dictated by our thoughts. And once we accept that and acknowledge it, then we know how to change our emotion when we want to change it, because we can change our thoughts. Our emotions are just the byproduct of our thoughts. So when we don't want to feel something, or if we say, wow, me being bitter towards my significant other is really not supporting the relationship. Okay, I know how to change it because I know how to change my thoughts. That's where the power is, Pam. I mean,
I
that's
agree.
incredible to me that we can say, "Hey, I don't wanna feel this way. I don't want to have this perception, and this reaction to my spouse. So where is it starting, and what can I do to actively change it?"
Well, which brings me to the one question that, a lot of my listeners wanted to know from you. Um, for someone listening for the listeners now, if they want healthier, more intentional relationships, but they don't know where to begin, what's the first small step that you would have them take?
Some of it is dependent on the couple. I'll give you 2. The first one is very practical, very concrete. When I work with couples who are, and almost every couple I work with says communication's a problem. It's one of the most common ones, as you probably know too. And what I will suggest is that they start by assigning chores, which sounds ridiculously simple and almost silly. But the idea of assigning chores, and to be clear, this isn't a dictatorship. This isn't, you're going to do this and then I'll take all
Yeah,
the fun stuff. That's not that. It's sitting down with your partner and saying, okay, here are the things that are important to accomplish to make our household run. And you have a conversation of what are the things both of you are good at. Well, in my relationship, my husband's the CFO of our relationship. He's good with numbers. He likes playing with numbers. He should have been a financial advisor in a past life, but I don't. I can do it. I just don't prefer to do it. And it's not something. So he manages it. He does not have final oversight, but he just keeps kind of that. He has the oversight that then he presents to me in our monthly meetings. I am really into nutrition and health, so I take care of all our meal planning and our grocery shopping and all that, because health is a really significant value in my life. So I make sure it's a significant value for all my people in my house. And he's fine with that because he doesn't want to really deal with any of that. So we look at the things from a strength perspective, and then it becomes, all right, what are we more skilled at? My husband can grow anything from any little bud, and if I look at a plant, it dies. So he does all the landscaping and manages the landscaping. And then, of course, there's going to be things that neither wants to do. Um, One of my couples have a cat, and neither likes to change the litter box. So they split it. That he takes 2 weeks. He takes the first 2 weeks of the month. She takes the last 2 weeks. But everything is organized. So there's no fights about it in the meantime, because everybody knows their role. And in the process of assigning chores, they're communicating. They're discussing their preferences. They're discussing their strengths. They're appreciating, hey, you're much better with money. Do you mind, being the one that has that oversight? That's a great starting point. And it's safer than some of the emotional vulnerability that eventually they get to. But to start off with that is really scary. But assigning chores, we can talk about that without a lot of debate, usually. So that's one great place. But for couples who might not be completely shut down with communication and it's just not as fluid as they want it to be, I really recommend the daily check-in. So we talked earlier, Pam, that there's 4 check-ins I recommend, and the daily check-in is essential before they really do a lot of other things. And all that is 5 to 10 minutes, no distractions. So no kids, no phones, nothing like that. And they just sit together, ideally face to face, if at all possible. And they have a conversation that is better than or more effective than, how was your day? Fine. How was your day? Good. That's not connecting. Or, hey, remember this weekend, the plumber's coming. That's not connecting. These are authentic conversations. So I suggest to couples, they could each come in with at least one question that is a deeper level. So I found some silly ones online the other day, and they can be silly. So I asked my husband, so if I went missing for 24 hours, where's the first place you'd look for me? And he thought about it. He's like, your sister's house. Yes. And and I felt so seen because he knew that, like, my sister would be my goat. If it's not him, it's my sister. And it just was like a silly little thing, but there was a connection. I knew he knew me to know that would be the place I'd go to. And then I had asked him to retell a story from his childhood that I've heard him tell 100 times, but I love his face when he talks about it because he smiles. So, and it could also be, what's the one thing that you really felt proud about today? Or what's the one thing that you were challenged by today? It can be stuff related to your day-to-day lives, but it's a different level than how are you? That's what we ask the cashier, and then we don't even listen to their answer. And we don't want that I mean, it'd be nice if we didn't do that to the cashier either, but we don't want that with our spouse. So either assigning chores or the daily check-in, 5 to 10 minutes. And when couples tell me, Robin, we don't have time for that, that is where, yeah, that's where I have to keep the neutral face, but I'm like, oh, that's a bigger problem. If you can't commit 5 minutes to just be there with your partner, there are bigger issues.
And to see them.
Yes.
I mean, like you said, to genuinely actually see and hear them.
Mhm. And what did you say
Mm,
earlier? Listen. Listening.
yes,
Mhm.
yes. Um, so where can people learn more about you and your work and your books? I think you've written 3, correct?
I actually have 4, and I don't talk
Oh.
because it's a boring research book, but so that one. But yeah, everything they can find about me is on my website, drrobinbuckley.com. I'm also on, I think, almost every social media platform except for X. It's just not the one I choose to be on, but they can find me by the same moniker. And
Mhm.
then in 2026, Pam, I get to step into your shoes, and I'm going to be starting at least 1, if not 2 podcasts.
Oh, I'm so excited. We need that.
Yeah, one is gonna be related to the book and really just offering relationship support and help, almost like a talk show where it's just, either live or sent in questions. And the second one is my passion project, and you asked me originally, "What's my passion?" And I said there's 2. One is working with couples, but the other is supporting the next generation of women. And it's something I did in a book I wrote. It's something that I touch on in my TED Talk. But this podcast is called That's What She Said. And it's going to be bringing in women over 50 to offer mentorship, help, advice so I say Gen X plus women to Gen Z women. And I'm so excited about it.
Oh my gosh, I am too because mentoring, I'm a retired youth minister. And so mentoring,
It's-
it means the world to me, and I still do, a lot of things to help, high school girls and just empowering and educating and mentoring our women, our
yeah.
future women.
It's not telling them what to do, it's just saying, if I had known this, if I
Mhm.
could give you one gift of wisdom, this would be, our earliest ancestors, the women met around the fire to share stories and maintain
Yes.
that knowledge, that tribal knowledge, and I just want more of that for us as the older generations and certainly for the ones coming up.
Yes, because aging is not as easy as I thought it would be.
Nope, it is not.
Things change all over the place.
Yeah, they do in some amazing ways, which I also didn't
Yes.
foresee, and I'm grateful.
Well, Robin, thank you for bringing both structure and heart into this conversation. I appreciate how you reminded us that meaningful change doesn't come from fixing ourselves. It comes from understanding ourselves and making intentional choices. Listeners, we will have all of her contact information in the show notes. So be sure and check that out. Again, thank you so much for being here with us today.
Thank you, Pam. It's a pleasure.
Before we close, I want to remind you that change doesn't come from fixing yourself. It comes from listening to yourself. If something from today resonated, let it land. You don't have to act on everything at once. One pause, one intentional choice, one small shift forward is enough. If you'd like early access to episodes before they go live each Thursday, you can join the email list at delaythebinge.com. Thank you for being here, for slowing down with me, and for choosing presence over autopilot. Until next time, finish a little stronger than you started.